So what makes a record timeless? Like, how do you define that? But more specifically, what makes an electronic record timeless? Is that even a thing? Electronic, EDM, electro, electronica, robot rock, computer music, whatever you want to call that genre, it's not really associated with being timeless or classic. But that's ridiculous. There's a ton of great electronic albums that feel timeless. And I've got some examples I'm going to show you guys today. So let's dive into my list of timeless electronic albums. Let's go. Hey fam, I'm Josh, aka Super Duper, and you're watching the Super Duper Show. So when I was coming up with this list, I was like, okay, we gotta define what a timeless record is. We need to have a checklist or some nerdy way of quantifying that the quality of the music is timeless without opinion getting in and kind of making things subjective. Listen, I is human, so there's gonna be some bias here, okay? But my own music didn't make this list, okay? So you can trust me, I'm trying to be as objective as possible. So I guess we gotta define timeless, right? What does it mean?
Something that goes unchanged as years pass.
As if it's been here forever. Now I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I think that's why so many timeless records use samples or pull from older forms of music. That's kind of like a cheat code, right? You can create and express yourself outside of the influence of the current era. So pulling sounds from other decades and other genres of music is gonna make you sound so different than music that's being made from scratch today. When you create like that, you're literally taking out the timestamp, removing time from the formula of the song altogether, aka timeless. In other words, it just sounds dope no matter when you're listening to it for the first time. Albums that just get better and better with age, just like the original Space Jam. Okay, to help us define what a timeless album is, I made this little nifty, very nerdy checklist for us to use. So any albums I cover on this video have checked most of the boxes on the timeless characteristics list, aka they're timeless. Fine, they're timeless to me, okay? All right, so here's the checklist. Rule number 1, timeless records avoid trends. Maybe they throw in a few popular tricks or sounds of the era and do it tastefully. That's fine. Usually timeless records will lean on tried and true sounds or instrumentation. Rule number 2, timeless records break the norm. The records that I find to be timeless sound like the artist stepped out of their generation and made some very different and bold creative choices. Not being a product of your time is such a hard task. It's usually polarizing, makes it high risk, and it's really hard to stick to your vision, let alone be successful. Rule number 3, timeless records are cohesive and realized. When I say realized, I kind of mean the artistic direction is just rock solid. Like that artist is laser focused on their sound and what makes them unique. Essentially, they just have a strong sonic brand. The whole album is well thought out and just gels together super well. Another way of putting it is it's a sound that has a distinct thumbprint and stands out among the peers. Okay, rule number 4. Timeless records have charm and character, which I get is a vague descriptor. I would explain this further as an unpolished but inspired feeling you get from the music. Something that feels motivated by emotion and not a specific purpose. Like an artist just throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks. For example, now this is going to be a hot take, but that is why, in my opinion, Daft Punk's album Discovery is way more timeless than Random Access Memories. Sorry, I can just feel Daft Punk trying to make something timeless on Random Access Memories. In my opinion, it doesn't have enough Daft Punk in it. It didn't have that same edge and uniqueness that their earlier records had. Hear me, it's a great album, but it's not electronic, and it doesn't bring anything new to the disco genre that it's trying to emulate. So what's it gonna be, Randy?
Wasn't happening for me, dog. I mean...
Rule number 5, timeless records have range and depth in the track listing. So the album needs to explore lots of moods and sounds and not just have a one-hit wonder that carries the whole thing. I'm very sorry, OMC. Not today. We've got the nerdiest checklist of all time. Now I'm gonna go in chronological order. I'm not rating them against each other or best to worst, but feel free to argue in the comments as much as you want about which one's the best. So the first album on my timeless electronic list is Play by Moby. It's a sampling masterpiece, honestly, and so moody for electronic music. So here are the songs that make the Play album timeless. Porcelain. Sampling being utilized in such a moving and emotional way. Sounds like someone who grew up on New Age and then discovered hip-hop and couldn't decide which route to go. Love the string sample, love the messy little piano noodling. All the sounds just work really well together. Love it. Other tracks that keep this album feeling fresh. Why Does My Heart Feel So Bad? No clue what the original music sounded like under those vocals, but I think Moby did a great job honoring the lyric and the mood with the instrumentation and the chords he chose. It's sad, but with a sense of hope, and eventually gets to this cool anthemic place without a ton of layers. Natural blues. Just a great balance of going emotional, but still keeping some energy. Keeping a lot of the songs in this album really sparse was a super smart move by Moby. Those vocals have so much character, tone, texture, and emotion to them. You don't want to overdo it and cloud them in the mix. You want them to be front and center because they're so captivating. So let's go through the checklist. So this album definitely broke the norm. It's cohesive and realized, has a lot of charm and character. With those vocals, there are plenty, and there's definitely range in the track listing. Lots of emotions and moods explored. Alright, so maybe he didn't avoid trendy sounds as much, but I feel like the samples balance out the 90s drum sounds. So he gets like a 4.5 out of 5 on our checklist. AKA, it's timeless. Alright, the next album on the list is Discovery by Daft Punk. To me, some artists just thrive underground. They're unpolished and untainted by fame or fans, or maybe their limitations and lack of resources just force them to make cool creative decisions. Daft Punk though, man, they just nailed it on the first draft. Simple, classic sounding dance music with so many hooks across the album, it's freaking wild. Songs that make this album timeless. One more time. It's got the perfect sample chop and is matched with this crazy catchy vocal that says the most broad, conversational lyric of all time that can be used for anything. One more time. You can't beat it. Other tracks that keep this album feeling fresh: Digital Love. French house perfection with an insanely cool guitar solo. Like, who else was putting that over dance music at that time? Something About Us. This song kind of sounds like a precursor to Random Access Memories. This song's a great palate cleanser on the album. It's a lot slower, moody, and loungy, and has a sick guitar tone in it. It also reminds me a little bit of Air, another French group, so I'm sure they were influencing each other at this time. So let's go through the checklist. They avoided trendy sounds. Yep. They broke the norm. Definitely. Cohesive and realized. Absolutely. Both sonically and visually. They had those helmets from the get-go. I mean, it's insane. It matches the music perfectly. Charm and character, absolutely. Range and depth in the track listing, yep. So, that's a 5 out of 5, y'all. That's timeless. All right, next up on the list is Push the Button by the Chemical Brothers. I would describe this album as them experimenting outside of the big beat genre and just doing a lot more fun, experimental things in electronic music. It still has elements of big beat in it, but it's not getting stuck in that formula, and it's like expanding that palette. They definitely took a lot of chances on this album, and it really shows with how broad the album sounds. But it all feels cohesive and very Chemical Brothers. Songs that make this album feel timeless. Galvanize. Q-Tip will just always make a song sound better. His voice is so amazing. And then add a string sample that sounds like it's plucked from an epic kung fu movie, and you've got a banger. Other tracks that keep this album feeling fresh: The Boxer. It's almost got like a hyper-pop-esque sample stutter, and it's got this cool rock influence and some funk in there, all mixed in with electronic music. Really cool blend. And I love the strings that come in on the end. It's a cool scene change that gives it kind of this epic anthemic feeling on the end. Surface to Air. This song just proves the Chemical Brothers have range. It's this slow-building, emotional song that still has a lot of drive to it. Feels like it should be on a U2 or a Tycho album. Really cool and euphoric, perfect for the night drive. Let's go through the checklist. Does it avoid trendy sounds? Yep. Does it break the norm? Yeah. Is it cohesive and realized? Yes. Feels very much Chemical Brothers. Does it have charming character? Oh yeah. Maybe too much. There's certain sounds on the album that I'm like, oh, bold choice. But hey, that's what you want. Take those chances. Leave that Chemical Brothers thumbprint. Range in the track listing, absolutely. So I'm gonna give this like a 4.5 out of 5. So, she's timeless. Next album on the list is Cross by Justice. I know this sounds dorky, but this album feels kind of punk rock to me. Justice took samples and synths and made them so gritty and dirty and gave them so much punch. It didn't sound like anything else at the time. Then you add the classical influence into the chords and the melodies, and this thing sounds so unique. The songs on this project feel so well married together, like they're all covered in the same dirt and grit. And then the visuals match it perfectly with the gothic religious imagery. I mean, Just amazing branding across the board. Chef's French kiss. So songs that make this album feel timeless, DANCE. Definitely hearing the Jackson 5 influence on this one. So when in doubt, just reference another timeless song and make your own version of it. Pharrell talks about this exact thing. When him and Chad Hugo were trying to develop their own sound for the Neptunes, they learned classic songs from the 70s and 80s and just got the music ingrained inside of them, played them over and over again, and then would start to change it slowly but surely and adding their own unique flavor to it. So then you've got the influence of the old stuff mixed with the new stuff. It's a great formula. And Justice did the same thing here, and it works super well. I love the kid vocals. For the longest time, I thought it was a sample, but I can't find anything on the internet that says it is. So I'm assuming it was written for the song, which is insane to me because it sounds so classic and timeless. But it's a great track, even without the vocals. Just amazing. Here's some other tracks that keep this album feeling fresh. Stress. The most perfectly titled song there ever was. This song feels like the final boss stage on a video game or something. Like, if someone can make that happen, please do it. I can't think of another song that has such a cool but anxious feeling. Genesis. I mean, what's more epic than a Godzilla sample setting the tone of your album on the intro track? I can't think of a more perfect way to hint at what's to come. Great build and release with a drop. It does not disappoint. This song just feels like it encapsulates the feeling of cool and tough and does not overdo it. All right, let's go through the checklist. It avoids trendy sounds 100%. Breaks the norm, definitely. Cohesive and realized, you betcha. Charming character, oh yeah. Those drum sounds are almost 20 years old, and the compression and punch on them is still something people can't emulate well. Like, it's still a secret sauce of Justice. Like, how many things in the production world can you name that haven't been figured out and put on YouTube as a tutorial? It's pretty amazing after all this time. Range in the track listing, not so much. It's kind of all dancey. So that's like a 4 out of 5. I would say timeless. All right, so next up on the list is In Color by Jamie XX. Weird sounds finally make a comeback in electronic music. Once EDM took over the world in the 2010s, a lot of people felt like electronic music was soulless and cold. Like the music from the festivals had infected the people in the studio and how they created it. But then Jamie XX comes along and a new wave of artists come with him who use a lot of warm, organic sounds, they use samples, and just put a lot of heart back into the music. Artists like Odessa, Tourist, Fred again. The songs on In Color are so unpredictable and exciting. This album is fun and dancey, but also really introspective and just adds so much depth to the electronic genre. Songs that make this album feel timeless. Gosh. So this song's really amazing because there's a famous breakbeat in it that had been used by a ton of artists in the electronic space for almost 3 decades. And Jamie XX still managed to flip it into something so original and creative that he could let it loop for almost 2 minutes straight. I mean, gold medal, my dude. And then he adds this long, emotional bass and a soaring synth to inject the best optimistic juxtaposition to the gritty, energetic drums. It's so wonderfully unexpected when all of those layers combine at the end. It's like every spectrum of electronic music captured into one song. Other tracks that keep this album feeling fresh. Loud Places. The mood of this song is so romantic, soft and groovy with a really creative sample use on the chorus. The rest is noise. Who knew a square dance, knee-slapping groove could work in electronic music? Well, it does, and it adds such a nice human touch to the song. To be honest, that is Jamie's thumbprint. He takes organic sounds and samples and utilizes them in such a cool, synthetic way. Lastly, this song is such a journey. It evolves and just changes so much. I love songs that can tell a story without any words. So let's go through our checklist. Avoids trendy sounds? Absolutely. Breaks the norm? 100%. Cohesive and realized? Definitely. Charming character? Loads of it. Range in the track listing? Definitely. To go from gosh to loud places? I mean, it's both ends of the spectrum. So that's 5 out of 5. Another timeless album, y'all. The next album on this list is Wildflower by the Avalanches. This album is the definition of perfecting a musical collage. When you're wondering what the word plunderphonics means, this is it. The world waited literally 16 years for the second Avalanches album, and they did not disappoint. I mean, imagine imagine the pressure. Their first album was amazing, and maybe to some people, that is the real winner. But I just hear so many more standout moments on Wildflower. More range and moods and emotion, and some of the craziest sample finds I feel like I've ever heard. No sophomore slump right here. Songs that make this album timeless because I'm me. Everything in this song matches together so perfectly like a puzzle. It's really remarkable to me that everything in this song didn't always exist together since the dawn of time. So much character, so much fun, and then they risked it all by adding a rapper in the mix. But this rap feature feels timeless to me. Every step of the process of making this song was perfect. Love it and love the music video. Fits it perfectly. Other tracks that keep this album feeling fresh. Subways. It's like a psychedelic sample blender, incorporating soul and disco in such a cool way. And the song has so many cool layers and hooks swirling around. I don't care that we never really land. I love the mess. Also check out Saturday Night Inside Out. This chill-out dance song is like the come-down on the album. It uses poetry, spoken word, to evoke just so much emotion. It gives you a taste of what the Wonder Years would sound like if it was scored by dance music. It's a bit foreshadowing of some elements and moods that Fred again would create a few years later. Let's go through the checklist. It avoids trendy sounds, absolutely. Breaks the norm, oh yeah. Cohesive and realized, 100%. Charm and character, too much to count. Range in the track listing, yes, definitely. So that's a 5 out of 5. That's a timeless record. Okay, so honorable mention time. These albums got really close, but just didn't make the cut for me. Give Up by Postal Service. I almost put it on this list, but I'm sorry, High School Josh, we can't do it. The vocal style and the synth sounds just don't come off timeless to me. But there are so many catchy and memorable songs on this album, almost no skips, honestly. It might not be timeless, but it definitely goes down as one of the best pop electronic albums of all time. Another honorable mention, Talkie Walkie by Air. Definitely timeless sounds and production, charm and character, 100%, but just leans a little too far left and artsy for me, and just didn't have a big enough impact in music and culture overall. And I say that as a die-hard Air fan. Really, Air's song Venus from this album is one of my all-time favorites. Go check it out, it's super cool. Hurry Up We're Dreaming by M83. Charming character? Absolutely. A very M83 sound, even though he's pulling a lot from the 80s and bands of that era, still feels like him. Last honorable mention is This Is Happening by LCD Sound System. This is a great album from a wonderful band, but to me, this one's just too indie and too punk, too LCD-y to be considered electronic. Still worth a tip of the hat. So by now, I can literally feel people scrolling down to comment, you missed this album, you missed that album, you missed this, that. Let me just address one thing before you do that. I wanted to cover timeless electronic albums and not genre-defining or the most influential albums. Genre-defining albums usually signify a specific moment in time or a shift in the music culture and spark a wave of new artists and sounds. These are the opposite of timeless records, in my opinion, because they have such a stark sonic timestamp. And sadly, these kinds of records usually don't sound timeless because their formulas can become predictable and stale by overexposure and lots of artists trying the same trick, a la Stutter House.
Did I stutter?
So here are a couple albums I thought were worth mentioning that aren't timeless, but definitely genre-defining and pretty influential. Blue Lines by Massive Attack, which started trip-hop. You've Come a Long Way, Baby by Fatboy Slim, which introduced the world to Big Beat. Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites by Skrillex, which introduced me to dubstep or brostep, whatever you want to call it. Tonight's self-titled EP, which brought about electronic trap music. Lastly, there's Flume's self-titled album, which I think created the subgenre of future bass. All of these albums are great and created these really rad subgenres in electronic music. They just don't check enough boxes to be timeless. That's just my opinion. So that's all for today, but there's more on the way. So subscribe, stay tuned, and stay super duper. Peace, guys.